تحدث عن نفسه. شعب أراد الحياة فاستجاب له القدر.
And to shed more light on the importance of the G20 summit and the topics expected to be tackled in the two-day event, we are joined over the phone by Mr. Omer Hamdy at the hand. He is an expert in sustainable development. Good afternoon, Mr. Omer.
Good afternoon. Always a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So the summit today addresses a multitude of priority issues for developing countries, primarily social inclusion, poverty, hunger eradication, reforms of global governance institutions, and energy transition within the framework of sustainable development. What's your take on these topics and the importance of the G20 summit to Egypt's sustainable development?
Well, as we can see, these challenges that you mentioned are becoming at the forefront of global policy in the 21st century.
Yes.
Focusing the G20 summit on these issues, like you were mentioning, on energy transition, on talking about renewable energies, different energy storages, green hydrogen, and so on, then on other aspects on social inclusion and banking and so on. These are all critical issues that not just Egypt is facing, not just the region is facing, but the whole world is facing. And since we are all facing these issues, it requires a global strategy and a global response.
So, sir, how can Egypt benefit from this great gathering of major economies in pushing cooperation with other countries and organizations and making new partnerships in the field of sustainable development?
Ultimately, it's very difficult to make any true progress on sustainable development alone. In many cases, it requires an entire global cooperation. So, for example, one of Egypt's key strategies is on green hydrogen, but the green hydrogen is not based on its own self-sufficiency. Its strategy is about becoming a major regional supplier for green hydrogen for the world. Egypt, with its wealth of natural resources, of sunlight, of wind energy, and all of these other resources, gives it this unique position in which it can produce and export the needs of all of these other countries. This is similar to many other issues that either Egypt or the world is facing, where each country takes an area that develops its approach that it is uniquely positioned in order to take advantage of, and to do that. And when they go and collaborate in that way, they're able to both reap the economic benefits as well as the environmental, social, and sustainable benefits as well.
So, sir, over the past years, Egypt has carried out many national projects in different fields, especially in urban development, transport, infrastructure, water treatment, agriculture, education, health, and clean energy. In your opinion, how could Egypt achieve its sustainable development of 2030 vision?
Well, the vision, obviously, of 2030 is a very broad, very all-encompassing, covering many different topics from poverty to education to gender equality to water and the environment and many different things. So this, for example, this summit, this approach, it covers some of that direction towards it. There is no one strategy, there is no one approach in which Egypt can use, but ultimately speaking, developing these international partnerships, putting this commitment into these infrastructure projects and encouraging these kind of approaches towards sustainable development, working towards finding more sustainable resources and sustainable sources of resources, such as, for example, water desalination, which is becoming a major issue, or finding more water-efficient ways in terms of agriculture, etc. These are all going to be critical if Egypt wants to achieve its very ambitious goals for its sustainable development vision for 2030.
So, sir, do you see that such participation in the G20 conveys a message to the whole world that Egypt is a figure to be followed in the field of sustainable development?
Absolutely. Egypt has been focusing and has managed to position itself uniquely in that kind of way, starting with COP in Sharm el-Sheikh and continuing into many different areas and many different conventions. And Egypt's participation continues to demonstrate Egypt's commitment to sustainable development, as well as its willingness and openness for international investment, for international cooperation, and that it is trying to lead the way in the region, both in the Middle East and Africa, towards transitioning to a more sustainable future.
So, sir, also during the summit, Egypt shows its development efforts and challenges faced by developing countries in their endeavors to achieve sustainable development goals. Tell us more about challenges faced by developing countries to achieve the sustainable development goals.
So one of the challenges, one of the major problems that the world has been facing is that we've been seeing many clear statistics that we had made a lot of progress in during the 20th century slide back. So progress made on poverty reduction, on education, on many of these different factors are actually in many parts of the world starting to decrease. And this has many factors. You know, when you remember what happened during COVID and the global lockdowns, when you think of, you know, different wars in the region, when you consider all of the different, you know, upheavals that the world has been seeing. So these challenges Egypt is facing, the world is facing, and we're seeing many metrics that we used to see constant improvement in actually slide back. And what we need to do is we need to reverse that trend. We need to find other solutions, more sustainable, more resilient solutions that are able to withstand the global upheavals and these challenges that we're facing and try to actually head towards our target. I think we still have a potential for reaching our targets, but it will definitely be more difficult in light of recent challenges.
So I'd like to thank you, Mr. Omer Hamdy Addahan, expert in sustainable development. Thank you, sir, for being with us. Dear viewers, short break and we'll be back, so stay tuned.
Egypt opens up to the world. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi meets with